Week 11 of the 2025 fantasy football season kicks off on Thursday, and in today's video, I'm going to help you guys make that playoff push. It is almost time for the playoffs, and in today's video, I'm going to be helping you guys set your lineup at the running back position. We are going to be breaking down every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way through Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether you should start or sit the running backs in all those games, as well as how I believe they'll finish by the end of the week. Before we get into things, though, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel, and you don't have to join today's video, then please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, like it owes you some money. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 11 running back start or sit decisions for the 2025 fantasy football season. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the New York Jumbo Jets at the New England Patriots. Now, Breece Hall had a Thanksgiving-level feast last week up against the Cleveland Browns. The man played so good that he even got the wishbone. 21 carries for 83 yards and 1 reception on 1 target for 42 yards and a score up against the Browns, who are one of the worst matchups for running backs on a per-game basis. The Jets' offense was completely trash in that game, and Breece Hall had to put the team on his back. He now faces an even tougher matchup up against the Patriots, who are a bottom 3 matchup for running backs on a per-game basis. So while he did have back-to-back games as a top 8 running back, I have to be much more pessimistic this week. Ultimately, though, for most people, you are not going to be able to sit Breece Hall even in a tougher matchup, so I got him as a mid-range running back too, as he, without Garrett Wilson, is the whole offense of the Jets. For Isaiah Davis, he is just a handcuff. We have seen showings where he gets more than 5 touches, like week 8 up against the bum Bengals defense, where he had 12 touches for 109 all-purpose yards, but last week he had just 4 touches. He cannot be trusted. For the Patriots side of the ball, based on reports from Andre Stevenson, should be considered on the wrong side of questionable for this matchup. He has missed the last 2 games with a toe injury. Travion Henderson went beast mode, like his name was Marshawn Lynch last week in Tampa. He had 14 carries for 147 yards with 2 touchdowns, as well as 1 catch on 1 target for 3 yards. This guy even looked at Mike Vrabel right in the eyes on the sideline to get permission to score because of how there was no one within a school zone of him. No one was even remotely close to stopping him on the Bucs defense. This is the Travion Henderson that I was given the Gawk Gawk 9000 special to all summer long. A guy that when he hits the open field, it is lights out for the defense. Jahmyr Gibbs Light is going to roll up the Jets defense like a spliff. That allows the 13th most points to running backs on a per-game basis. He is a high-end running back, too, for me this week, who could be ranked inside the top 12 if Terrell Jennings does miss with the knee injury. Jennings is listed as day-to-day with that knee injury, thus making me feel like he is more likely to play than not. He played just 8% of the snaps last week, but I would expect him to get around 20+% of the snaps if he does suit up. He has seen 12 touches in week number 9, but I doubt he finds the end zone again like he did in that matchup. So for me, if he does end up playing, he would be a sit. Now we move to Madrid, Spain for the the Sunday morning game. Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Set your alarms. The left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders at the Miami Dolphins. Now, Devon Achane let his nuts hang up against the Buffalo Bills last week. Dude had the Dolphins on his back, and it made me smile from ear to ear. Nothing sweeter than hitting crybaby Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills with a steel chair. In that matchup, Achane had 22 carries for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns with 6 receptions on 6 targets for 51 yards as a top 3 running back. He has been a top 12 running back in 6 of 10 games and is yet to fall outside the top 18 at the running back position in the 6th best matchup for running backs on a per-game basis up against the Commanders, who just got torn up by Jahmyr Gibbs. I expect a top 3 showing out of Devon Achane in this spot. Jalen Wright returned and out-carried Ollie Gordon 5-1. I love my boy Ollie Gordon and wouldn't be shocked if he was to get more touches than Jalen Wright this week, but ultimately this is a clear stay away from scenario with both of these backup running backs. For the Commanders, Chris Rodriguez is dealing with a shoulder injury. He has scored a touchdown in back-to-back weeks. Without him, JCM will lead the running back group as he did last week. 11 carries for 30 yards. He has lost all of the aura that he had from earlier on in the season. The Dolphins matchup may be great on paper as they allow the 9th most points to running backs on a per game basis, but recently they have shut down both Bijan Robinson as well as James Cook, with JCM failing to score 6 fantasy points over the last 5 games. There is no way in hell you are starting him, even in a spot that on paper does look like a wet dream. Jeremy McNichols will be in line for more work if C-Rod is out, but ultimately, after I just saw the Dolphins lock up James Cook, I'm not risking it with a rushing attack that I have zero trust in without their quarterback one, with Marcus Mariota under center. Now we move to the 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slate on Sunday. The Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. Rico Dowdle had his worst game as the Panthers started last week in New Orleans. Prior to last week, he was a top 2 running back in all 3 starts. Against the Saints, he had 18 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown, with 3 receptions on 3 targets for 10 yards as a high-end running back too. He has scored a touchdown or more in all starts as the clear lead back, with Chuba Hubbard now in the rearview mirror in the 3rd best matchup for running backs on a per game basis up against the Falcons. Rico is a must-start top 8 running back for me on the week. Chuba has played less than 25% of the snaps in back-to-back games, 5 or fewer touches in both of those games. Can't even speculatively play him anymore due to the fact that he has lost the keys to the backfield too. You might just get hit with the Rico Dowdle for the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan Robinson was left in the dust last week as Tyler Algier scored not 1 but 2 touchdowns in that game in Germany up against the Colts. Bijan had 17 carries for 84 yards with 2 receptions on 2 targets for 4 yards. The Panthers allowed the 17th most points to running backs on a per game basis, so Bijan is primed to bounce back here. I'm not panicking at all. This guy is 7 of 9 games this year as a top 12 running back. He's a must-start top 5 back in this matchup. Now, I know Algier scored twice last week and left Bijan owners with blue balls last week, but at the end of the day, his touches bounce around far too much for you to actually touch him. Last week, he had 11 carries for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. The 3 games prior to that, he had 12 total touches combined, so I just don't think I can advocate to start him. I just think that would be silly. Now we move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. We begin with the Buccaneers running backs. Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles said yesterday that there is still no timetable for Bucky Irving to return from the shoulder injury. He did suggest that the shoulder injury is what is holding him back, so that ankle injury doesn't appear to be an issue anymore. At this point, the smart expectation would be to just assume that Bucky Irving is out again this week. Rachaad White is still the starter here, even with him on the struggle bus, and Sean Tucker seeing 30+% of the snaps in back-to-back weeks. Rachaad with 2 A's. White hasn't even surpassed 40 rushing yards now in 3 straight games, but, and there's a big but, shout out to Angela White, if there ever was a game to get back on track, it would be here in the 4th best matchup for running backs on a per-game basis up against the Bills. We just saw A-Chain put them in the Wuchie finger hold. Rachaad White may not be the most trustworthy running back in fantasy football right now, but in this spot, he is a mid-range running back too. Sean Tucker saw 10 touches last week and 12 touches prior to the bye in week number 8, so the door is certainly open for more touches without Bucky Irving, but ultimately the snaps are still going to go the way of Rachaad White, so unless something changes here, I would not feel comfortable throwing him into my lineup, even with 9 carries for 53 yards last week. James Cook was locked up, don't let me out, by the Dolphins defense last week. 13 carries for 53 yards and 5 receptions on 5 targets for 24 yards in a game in which the Buffalo Bills offense was straight up trash. Josh Allen couldn't get the team to move the ball, and as you guys have seen this season, when James Cook and the run game can't get it going, the Bills fall flat on their face like their name was Flat Stanley. The Buccaneers are the 9th best matchup for running backs on a per game basis, so you have to expect James Cook and the Buffalo Bills offense are going to get right in this game, which could end up being the highest scoring game of the week. 5 of 9 games inside the top 12 for James Cook. You aren't going to be in panic mode on James Cook in a matchup like this. I expect him to live up to his last name and cook up the Buccaneers defense as a top 6 running back on the week. No reason to even spend time yapping about the Buffalo Bills backup running backs. You aren't starting any of them. Ty Johnson appears to be the number 2 back, and even with 40% of the snaps snaps last week. He saw just 3 touches. He is a clear sit. Now we move to the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. Before we break down this matchup in depth at the running back position, as well as the rest of the matchups on the Week 11 slate, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog, and sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you'll receive a free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you play $5 on the pick'em, you'll receive an additional $100 in bonus entries or in bonus funds. If you're new to the pick'em and don't know how it works, it is incredibly simple. You pick at least 2 players, they're higher or they're lower. If those picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher, but all of the picks need to hit. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. The Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans, the battle of the Oilers. Woody Marks had a friend in me last week as he hit the Jaguars defense with the Wombo combo. That ain't Falco. 14 rushes for 63 yards and a touchdown, as well as 2 receptions on 3 targets for 18 yards. As the running back number 11, playing 80% of the snaps, if the team would just give this guy 60+% of the snaps weekly, even with this offense being suspect, I would be excited to bang the drum for Woody Marks as a top 18 running back week in and week out, especially in a matchup like this. Ooh, the Titans allow the 3rd most points to running backs on a per-game basis. You have to be excited about this spot, even with his snaps being above 50%, being far from a guarantee. Back in week number 4, he slapped the Titans silly running back 6 with 17 carries for 69 yards. Very nice, I like. And a touchdown, as well as 4 receptions on 5 targets for 40 yards and another touchdown. He is a mid-range running back 2 for me. 9-inch Nicholas Chubb got cucked by Woody Marks last week with just 13% of the snaps, though he was efficient when he got the ball. 5 carries for 47 yards and 1 reception on 1 target for 5 yards. In a matchup like this, I wouldn't be surprised if he did find the end zone, but since he hasn't scored a touchdown since week number 5, which is ages ago at this point, I would prefer to leave him on my bench. Now we move to the Tennessee Titans side of things, and man, oh man, are the Titans as a whole just disgusting. Tyjae Spears is the prototypical break glass in case of emergency running back 3 start in fantasy football. He is not a guy that you ever actually feel good about starting. He is on a team that is a straight up disgrace to the great game of football, and yet he does have enough juice to rip off a big game. Last time out prior to the bye up against the Chargers, he had 7 carries for 26 yards with 3 receptions on 3 targets for 36 yards on 45% of the snaps. Tony Pollard played 62% of the snaps with 10 carries for 56 yards and 1 reception on 2 targets for 12 yards. In the 22nd best matchup for running backs on a per game basis, I will lean into the upside of Spears, especially since they may switch things up and give him more touches coming out of the bye. He is a running back 3 start. Again, not a guy that you should be banging the drum super duper excited to put in your lineup. Tony Pollard is just so uninteresting. Even if he outsnaps and outtouches Tyjae Spears, which isn't even a guarantee to happen, I also couldn't even guarantee if he did that, he would score just 10 PPR points. He is a sit for me. Now we move to the Chicago Bears at the cold like Minnesota Vikings. Now Swift returned from his groin injury last week, and that led to him missing week number 9 up against the Giants. In his return, Swift outtouched Monangai 18-7, which was my expectation. I know that Monangai is a talented back, but it is very clear that Swift has earned his stripes in this offense, Tony the Tiger style, and he will see a majority of the work when healthy. In that game, he had 13 carries for 80 yards with 5 receptions on 8 targets for 18 yards. Prior to last week, he scored a touchdown in 4 straight games. In the 20th best matchup for running backs, Swift is a high-end running back too for me on the week. Now, Kyle Monangai is going to be a sit for me this week. While he clearly ranks very high in the handcuff category, as if Swift was to miss time again, he would instantly become a high-end running back 2 or even a low-end running back 1 in my rankings in most matchups. With Swift healthy, though, it is a much different story. This is very clearly DeAndre Swift's backfield. 7 rushes for 28 yards and a touchdown last week with 1 target for 0 receptions. In a much worse matchup this week, I would project him to score around 6 fantasy points. If you are in a pickle, I get it. Maybe he does find the end zone again. But for me, I am definitely out on him this week. Ever since returning from injury, Aaron Jones is the clear lead back on the Vikings offense. 71% of the snaps last week to Jordan Mason's 25%, with 9 carries for 47 yards and a touchdown, as well as 3 receptions on 6 targets for 22 yards as a low-end running back number 1. Facing a Bears defense that allows the 14th most points to running backs on a per game basis. While I don't have any trust in Mr. 9, J.J. McCarthy, Jones should be able to finish as a mid-range running back number 2. With Aaron Jones back in the fold, Jordan, the numbers, Mason, what do they mean? Has fallen, and he can't get up. Just 5 touches in 2 of the last 3 games. No way you can roll him out there, even in a good matchup this week. Now we move to the Green Bay Packers at the New York Football Giants. Despite the Packers and the Eagles Monday Night Football game being so painfully boring, and I'm sure half the people watching fell asleep at halftime, Josh Jacobs was eating good, running back 6 with 21 carries for 74 yards and a score, with 5 receptions on 6 targets for 33 yards. Josh Jacobs has now scored 9 touchdowns over the last 6 games and has a touchdown or more in all of those 6 games. Facing a Giants defense that allows the 2nd most points to running backs on a per game basis, I expect Josh Jacobs to hit the Giants with an eye poke like his name was John Jones. He is a must-start top 8 option. Just 2 touches in that snooze fest for Emmanuel Wilson last night. There is no need to play him. This game is the worst case scenario for the Giants running backs. Not only do you have a bottom of the barrel matchup for running backs on a per game basis, we also will probably be without Jackson Dart, who suffered a concussion against the Bears on Sunday. Match all that with the team firing Brian Daboll, there is 0 reason to play either running back in this spot for the Giants. If you had to play one, if all of your running backs are, on bye, or they are straight up ass, it would be Tyrone Tracy, who had 14 carries for 71 yards last week with 1 reception on 2 targets for 0 yards, playing 67% of the snaps to Singletary's 33%, but it doesn't feel like a guarantee that it goes that way in terms of snaps again and touches this week. Singletary had 11 touches last week for 73 all-purpose yards, and the game prior outsnapped and outplayed Tracy. This is a clear just, watch from afar, stay away scenario. Again, this is one of the worst 3 matchups for running backs on a per-game basis. Now we got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Throw out the record book in an AFC North Division rivalry matchup. Chase Brown has been on an absolute heater, like Allen counting cards at the blackjack table in Hangover. Prior to the bye, he had back-to-back top 6 finishes against the Jets and the Bears. This week, he faces a Steelers defense that allows the 24th most points to running backs on a per-game basis. So I do think we need to pump the brakes on Chase Brown a little bit here, who smashed in 2 top 14 matchups for running backs in the prior 2 games. The last time these 2 teams went toe-to-toe was back in week number 7. He had 11 carries for 108 yards and 2 receptions on 4 targets for -8 yards. And while I am pumping the brakes, he is still a good mid-range running back number 2. Samaje Perine is listed as week-to-week following his high ankle sprain. The team was on bye last week, so it is entirely plausible that he does return this week, but week-to-week never sounds great, regardless of if it is Taj Brooks or if it is P. Ryan as the running back 2. Chase Brown sees the majority of the work anyway, so you will never feel confident enough to play either guy. Jaylen Warren looked good running the ball in LA up against the Chargers last week on Sunday Night Football, but ultimately in a game where the team scored just 10 points and was trailing for all quarters outside the first, where the Steelers had a field goal and the Chargers had 2 points from a safety, the offense really let Jaylen Warren down. 14 carries for 70 yards with 2 receptions on 2 targets for 21 yards as a low-end running back 2. And while that game was just mid, he now gets a Bengals defense that is the best matchup for running backs on a per-game basis. Last time these 2 teams played, Warren was the RB7 with 16 carries for 127 yards and 4 receptions on 5 targets for 31 yards. I got him as a low-end RB1 this week. Even with around 35+% of the snaps weekly for Kenneth Gainwell, you can't even lock him in to getting more than 5 touches, and with just 2 last week, there is no way, Jose, that you are playing him. Now we move to the LA Superchargers at the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval. Without Omarion Hampton, Kamani Vidal continues to be in the driver's seat of this Chargers backfield over the last 5 games. He has been hot and cold every game. Week 6 at Miami, he's the running back 9. He's on top of the world. Holy shit, you picked up Kamani Vidal instead of Hassan Haskins. You You are a genius. Week 7 versus Indianapolis, running back 27. Week 8 versus Minnesota in prime time. Shout out to Deion Sanders, running back number 8. Week 9 at Tennessee, wet dream matchup. He's definitely going to smash. He's going to break the curse of this every other game hot and cold thing. Nope, running back 45. Week 10 versus Pittsburgh, top 10 running back. So based on pattern recognition that I learned in elementary school, this will be an off game. But ultimately, the NFL typically doesn't work in patterns. 25 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown with 1 reception on 1 target for 13 yards. The Jaguars are the 23rd best matchup for running backs, so this game reeks of a low-end RB2 finish for Kamani Vidal. Jared Patterson played just 5% of the snaps last week, playing 20+% of the snaps in the prior 2 games. I do think he should see more than a grand total of 1 touch, though, for 1 yard this week, but even if he gets 5 touches, you wouldn't want him in your lineup. Now we move to the Jaguars side of the ball. Travis Etienne has ripped off 15+ PPR points in back-to-back games. Last week, up against the Texans in a below-average matchup, he had 16 rushes for 58 yards and a touchdown, as well as 2 receptions on 4 targets for 19 yards. Even though I still deep down don't think that anyone should be trusting the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, Etienne has proven earlier on in the season and ever since the bye that he can be trusted. Weeks 5 through 7 was a doozy where he just really wasn't good at all. But outside of that, he has been a real reliable piece for your fantasy team. With the Chargers allowing the 19th most points to running backs on a per-game basis, I got him as a mid-range running back number 2. Byshaw Tootin did score back in week number 9 up against the Las Vegas Raiders, but with just 1 game over 10 PPR points this season and just 4 carries for 5 yards last week, no one in the right mind should be playing him. Now we move to the 4 p.m. slate of games. The Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Kyren Williams is on fire, like the guy at the beginning of the Black Ops 2 campaign. Back-to-back games with a top 8 finish at the running back position. Last week at Santa Clara against the 49ers, 14 carries for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns with 2 receptions on 3 targets for 11 yards. Kyren Williams has been a top 12 running back in 5 of 9 games, and while this is a bad matchup for running backs on a per-game basis with the Seahawks allowing the 25th most points to running backs, you aren't just going to sit a guy that is running as hot as Kyren in an offense that is a certified wagon. Matthew Stafford is playing like the MVP of the National Football League. Kyren is a low-end running back 1 for me on the week. Now, Blake Corum has received 12+ carries in 3 straight games due to the Rams being up by significant margin in all games. If this is a closer game, then that will not be the case. Even with all these touches, though, he hasn't even scored more than 6 PPR points. Clear sit for me, even though I think Blake Corum's talented. Kyren's going to be the one scoring the touchdowns. It's a tough spot for running backs. No way are you playing Blake Corum. My opinion on Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker is the exact same as it has been for a majority of this season. Charbonnet is the only running back in the backfield that I'm willing to take a swing on. While Kenneth Walker should see more touches and snaps, Charbonnet is the guy that has the upside to score. Kenneth Walker could rush for 125 yards this week and get to the goal line twice. And Charbonnet, who is sitting on the bench playing pocket pool, will get in and score the 2 touchdowns. Last week up against the Cardinals, Charbonnet had 14 carries for 83 yards and a score, while Kenneth Walker III had 14 carries for 67 yards and 1 reception for 3 yards. The Rams matchup here is the worst for running backs on a per-game basis, which could be a recipe for disaster for both guys. I will take my shot on Charbonnet as a break glass in case of emergency running back 3. Because of the touchdown upside. In the worst matchup for running backs, I can't start Kenneth Walker as there is such a low possibility that he even gets a bailout touchdown to save his day. He is a clear sit. Now we got the 49ers at the Arizona Cardinals. Even with the 49ers getting face-fucked by Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams, Christian McCaffrey was still a low-end RB1, 12 carries for 30 yards with 8 receptions on 10 targets for 66 yards in the worst matchup for running backs on a per-game basis. So facing the Cardinals this week, who allow the 11th most points to running backs on a per-game basis, I got CMC as a top 3 running back. He is my RB1 on the week. B-Rob has dipped his toes inside of the end zone in back-to-back weeks. Last week up against the Rams, he had 8 rushes for 41 yards and a score with 1 reception on 1 target for 4 yards. Ultimately, while I will give B-Rob the praise for scoring, and while I do love him as a handcuff, with just 1 game this year with 25% or more of the snaps, you aren't playing him with Christian McCaffrey healthy. For the Arizona Cardinals, Trey Benson has been out for what feels like a decade at this point, as he hurt his knee in the fourth quarter back in week 4 up against the Seahawks. He could return this week. He also could not. We have such little information on Trey Benson as I'm recording today's video. If he is in, I want him in my lineup. He would retain his role, in my opinion, as the RB1 in Arizona. Now, the RB1 in Arizona without James Conner isn't a bell cow running back. You'll still see other running backs touching the ball, but he should be the guy in line to get the most touches. In the 16th best matchup for running backs, my only issue here is that I have no idea how healthy he actually is. And while I think he retains his role as the RB1 on the team, the split may be closer than we would like. So he is a high-end running back 3 for me on the week. With more info, he could climb up the rankings, though. Emari Demercado would be the running back to have if Benson is out. Bam Knight did out-touch him 10 carries with 28 yards and 1 reception on 4 targets for 5 yards, but had a much more underwhelming day. Demercado was the RB19 in Seattle with 4 carries for 64 yards and 3 receptions on 4 targets for 40 yards. If Benson is good to go, I would slot if he is not good to go, I apologize. I would slot Demercado in that high-end RB3 range. Then we got another AFC North division rivalry matchup, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Lamar Jackson returning has made a big difference for this Ravens offense, but it certainly has not made Derrick Henry reach new heights. Shout out to the Kelsey brothers. Sure, he is much safer now with Lamar, but he still doesn't feel like the kind of guy that you just want to pencil in, lock in as a top 12 back game in and game out. 20 carries last week for 75 yards and 3 receptions on 3 targets for 9 yards in Minnesota as a low-end RB2. This week, he faces the Browns, or the 27th best matchup for running backs. Doesn't feel like the kind of game where Derrick Henry magically levels up to Super Saiyan levels. Last time these two teams played in week 2 in Baltimore, Henry had just 2.3 PPR points. While I do definitely expect him to be much better, he's just a low-end RB2. Keaton Mitchell continues to look solid, but ultimately with Henry on the team, there are only so many touches that can be divvied out to Keaton Mitchell and Big Justice. Boom! Hill, 4 rushes for 31 yards last week. He is a clear sit. Quinshon Judkins returned from his shoulder injury last week in MetLife to face off up against the Jets. 22 carries for 75 yards with 2 receptions on 3 targets for 10 yards. When these teams played earlier on in the season, Judkins was playing his first ever NFL game, and he played just 27% of the snaps. While he still doesn't play enough snaps, in my opinion, he should be playing far more, he is still the clear lead back on this offense, and while I do expect the Ravens defense to perform well here, it is the 5th best matchup for running backs on a per-game basis. I got Judkins as a mid-range RB2. Dylan Sampson will continue to piss me off with how many snaps he gets, but ultimately, those snaps haven't led to many touches, just like Keaton Mitchell here. He is a sit. Now we move to another division rivalry matchup, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid, the Kool-Aid man, said that Isaiah Pacheco's knee may take more time, basically telling us that he probably will not practice this week, elevating Kareem Hunt into the lead back role on this offense. Back in week number 9, prior to the bye up against the Bills, Kareem was the clear RB1 on this team, clocking in for 78% of the snaps up against the Buffalo Bills, with 11 carries for 49 yards and a touchdown with 1 reception on 2 targets for 6 yards. This week, he faced the 26th best matchup for running backs on a per-game basis, so it doesn't feel like the kind of game where Hunt goes bananas, but as long as this game is close, Kareem has a chance to score multiple times. He is a low-end RB2 for me on the week. Even without Pacheco, Brashard Smith scored under a point with just 20% of the snaps. I would project things to look very similar this week. He is just not startable at this point. J.K. Dobbins suffered a foot injury last week against the Las Vegas Raiders. He played through the injury, and since the matchup was on a Thursday, I do like his chances to play, but this is something to follow, as the last report we got after the game was just that he was waiting on a second opinion, which makes me far more nervous. This kind of feels like a scenario where we're going to be stuck twiddling our thumbs all week to know if he's actually good to go or not. So even if he does play coming off of a foot injury, I would be very cautious to bang the drum here in the 27th best matchup for running backs up against the Chiefs. He would be a high-end running back 3 for me. If Dobbins is out, I would put Harvey into the same range I have Dobbins in as a high-end RB3. I really thought last week was the game to get in on. He has scored a touchdown or more in the prior 3 games. And against the Raiders, I was expecting belt to ass. Instead, the Broncos win by a field goal in a game with 17 total points, 10-7, with Harvey seeing just 4 carries for 9 yards and 2 receptions on 3 targets for 9 yards. If Dobbins is in, Harvey stays on the bench for me in a tough spot for running backs. Now we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the Detroit Lions at the Philadelphia Eagles. After Jahmyr Gibbs dropped a Cleveland steamer on your chest in week number 9 up against 9 and the Vikings is the RB37, he bounced back in fantastic fashion. 15 carries for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns with 3 receptions on 4 targets for 30 yards and an additional touchdown. When Jahmyr Gibbs is getting fed, he is truly a sight to behold, like the girl's rack in the hot tub in Halloween number 2 inside that hospital. Very nice in a mid-range matchup for running backs on a per-game basis up against the Birds. Gibbs is a penciled-in, must-start, locked and loaded top 5 option. David Montgomery has really been neutered this year, but with Dan Campbell calling the plays, we did see him get 15 carries for 71 yards and 1 reception on 1 target for 0 yards up against the Commanders in Washington last week. He even outsnapped Gibbs, which could lead to this backfield being much more like prior to the last 2 seasons, unlike this year where it's been clearly Gibbs, which would suck for Gibbs owners, but would definitely make Monty more than just like a high-end RB3, though I don't think we can truly move the needle after a 1-game sample size where they just beat the ever-living shit out of the Commanders. So I will keep Monty ranked as a high-end running back 3 with solid upside due to how good the Lions offense can be in any given game. For the Eagles, if you needed Saquon Barkley to have a solid game on Monday Night Football in Lambeau up against the Packers, you probably stayed up and watched that poorly coached game from both sides and are feeling incredibly disappointed. 22 carries for 60 yards, with 3 receptions on 3 targets for 41 yards is the RB20. This season has been a real roller coaster ride for Saquon Barkley, and not even really one of those fun roller coaster rides either. It's like getting on that ride in Disney where it's a small, small world, right? It was cool when you were 8 years old, but as a 25-year-old man, the shit just, sticks in your brain. It's like that song in Halloween 3, the movie. We referenced Halloween twice already, but where they're talking about going to go get the Halloween mask. It's a very, very, very catchy song. That's the same thing with the Small World, if you've ever been on it. And I've not been to Disney in like 8 years. I need to go back, but I'm not like a Disney adult, because I don't go there every year. I've only been there like 3 times, but I do fuck with Disney. I fuck with the mouse. Shout out to Mickey. He has just 4 games this year as a top 12 running back out of 9 games, with 3 games in which he failed to score 10 PPR points. He now faces the 31st best matchup for running backs on a per-game basis, so it's bad. So while things may not feel the best right now, you aren't going to sit Saquon Barkley, because even though all the ups and downs this man has had, he could easily score 30-plus points in a matchup like this, even if it's bad. So I got him as a low-end RB1. The Eagles utilize multiple running backs behind Saquon Barkley, with none of them standing alone as the clear RB2, so you're not going to be playing any of them. Now we move to Monday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys at the Las Vegas Raiders. Starting off with the Raiders, we got Ashton Jeanty. Now, Ashton Jeanty, you are just happy that anytime you have a running back going up against the Dallas Cowboys, you are bricked up at the possibility of that running back having a weak winning performance. The type of game that will have you salivating like a pit bull. The Cowboys defense is the 10th best matchup for running backs on a per game basis, and I fully expect Jeanty to take full advantage of that. Back-to-back games coming out the bye with 15 plus PPR points. Last week in Denver on Thursday Night Football, he was a high-end RB2 with 19 carries for 60 yards and a tug with 3 receptions on 5 targets for 3 yards. While I trust Geno Smith as much as I trust my wife to spend less than $100 anytime she goes to Target, the matchup is far too juicy here to rank him as anything but a top 8 running back. Raheem may be the clear RB2 in Las Vegas behind Ashton Jeanty, but with Jeanty playing with workhorse numbers and Raheem playing less than 15% of the snaps in back-to-back games, if I can't even guarantee a single touch, you are not going to be playing him. For the Dallas Cowboys, Javonte Williams has been a very consistent top 12 running back for your fantasy team. One of the best picks you could have made in the back half of your fantasy drafts. And honestly, in some leagues where he's going in like the 10th round, you feel like a fucking genius, right? Albert Einstein that you picked him. 5 of 9 games inside the top 12 with just 2 finishes outside the top 24. Prior to the bye week, they faced the Cardinals in week number 9, which was one of the down bad games for Javonte Williams. 15 carries for 83 yards, 1 reception on 1 target for 0 yards in a game in which the Cowboys got stopped, even if the scoreboard says the Cardinals won by just 10 points. In the 16th best matchup for running backs here up against the Raiders, I expect Javonte Williams to get back to his top 12 ways. I got him as a top 10 running back this week. Jaden Bonnie Blue was a healthy scratch last game out prior to the bye, and Malik Davis took over as the RB2. But Javonte Williams playing as well as he has this season, you're not playing the Cowboys RB2. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you didn't enjoy, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. Check out all the videos on our screen if you haven't seen them already. Love you long time. As always, have a great one. Good boy. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Good boy.